We are in a completely different era for Pokemon cards, and it's really making you think, how long can these price increases last? Though for a quick update before we get into this video, I'm actually running a huge Whatnot giveaway stream on September 21st at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I'll be giving away 30 packs of Pokemon 151, and I'll also be auctioning packs starting at just $1. And I'll speak more about that stream a bit later on in this video. But there's a bit of tension with Pokemon cards right now, because when we look at the prices and all things considered, it seems like almost unrealistic how in demand Pokemon cards are. And honestly, I'm saying this as a person who's been collecting since I was a kid. It kind of just trips me out how in demand they are. Like, what's actually happened for them to become this sought after? Have people just awoken to the fact that Pokemon cards just continuously rise in price? Are a lot of people who have no connection to Pokemon at all just jumping into the hobby? And a Pokemon card's just gonna climb endlessly in price like until the end of time? There's literally no brake pedal, because that's what it feels like right now. I mean, to get some good perspective, it's good to walk you through some of the market prices and explain what's happening. All right, first one on the list is the Paldean Fates Mew, or the Bubble Mew, which of course is a very loved card for this era. And you know, the rise it's had recently is pretty wild. And what's caused this? I just think that there's been a lot of demand for this card, and you know, everyone kind of at the same time just said, you know what, Bubble Mew, that's that card, you know, that's the card that we all want, and of course the prices reflect that. We can see in June selling for 290 US, which was actually a bit of a low point for this year, but you can see the Bubble Mew went all the way up to 700 US. Right now, it's gone to 646 USD. So, you know, definitely a big hype swing happened for this card in particular, and probably well-deserved in some aspects because the artwork is so unique, but also there was all this hype coming in. And of course, with so many people entering the hobby right now, you know, there is just so many people jumping on board, you know, and when they see a card like that and they see that it's in demand, probably a lot of people, you know, naive people or bananas, like we always call them, bananas, you know, bananas just jumped in and said, you know what, we're going to be paying those prices. So who knows, maybe it isn't banana level prices yet, this card. I'm not sure, because I've always seen it as a very beloved card, but of course we just don't know the level of where this card's going to go, because at the moment I don't think Paldean Fates is really going to get much reprints, and we know how much people love this card as well. So it is a very interesting time. If I pull this into the year graph, you can actually see the previous high point it had was $421, and of course then it found that low point for around 300 US, and of course, like I said, right now selling for that 630 to 640 range, which is definitely still expensive. It's had a lot of growth, but you know, we're going to have to see where this card goes in the next few years. I do think it's going to become a very iconic card, and it is a staple piece for any collection, but of course we're going to have to see how it goes. Now moving on to another very beloved card from Paldean Fates, and you know, Paldean Fates has only a few special illustration rares in the set. The Charizard was selling for 159 US, right now selling for $300, which, you know, is quite a lot. But like when you compare it to the Bubble Mew is like more than double that. So what's going to happen? Is the Charizard going to catch up? I mean, it still is a Charizard, very loved card, very interesting. We're also going through a new Charizard hype period. Now, I have a theory, okay? And I may be wrong here, and you know, you guys can all talk about it, because I'm going to go show you a few more Charizard cards. I feel when there's a big hype swing of people that don't really love Pokemon, or there's like a lot of new people that come into the hobby, I feel Charizard becomes popular. I feel it's the Pokemon that like gets all the, I don't want to use the word casuals, but you know, people that just like hear Pokemon cards are cool and Pokemon cards are interesting. I feel that's when Charizard cards start rising in price. Maybe there's a bit of correlation with just new people entering the hobby, because it's like one of the most popular Pokemon of all time. I'm not sure about that connection point, just a little bit of a theory, but you know, you guys can let me know what you think about that. Moving on to the next one, which is the Charizard VMAX as well. Amazing Gigantamax card from the Charizard UPC. Selling for $23 in August. Right now selling for 65 US. It was actually really funny because on a video like a week or two ago, I said that this was a little bit undervalued at that stage, and right now it's definitely caught up to that. You know, selling for 65 US, which is, you know, definitely a good price for this card in particular. I do think that this card is awesome. Like I said, I thought it was a little bit undervalued at like whatever it was, 25 bucks. But you know, right now, maybe it's going to start going to an overvalued stage as well. And that's just how the Pokemon market works. Something is a little bit of a sleeper, then something gets overvalued, and then it's very hard to find that middle ground where you're like, you know what, this is a decent price to pay. Nearly every time in this hobby, it's either like, wow, that's a steal, or wow, this is just completely out the realms of common sense. Same thing with the Charizard from 151, massive price growth, selling for $185 in July, right now selling for $308. We are very lucky that we had the Blooming Waters reprint, or the Blooming Water, you know, the new Pokemon 151 products that came out earlier this year, because that actually calmed this Charizard down a little bit. And if you did want to add this Charizard to your collection, you did have a bit of a window. Check this out. I just pulled this into the year graph, and you can see right here, around February this year, selling for 290 US. And of course, around that time is when Blooming Waters came on the market, and you can see all that reprint had a big effect on the price where it dropped down to $185. And that was your sweet spot to purchase this Charizard. And of course, now it's definitely climbed up. Now, as I did mention earlier in the video, I'm actually going live on Whatnot and doing a massive Pokemon 151 giveaway stream on 21st of September, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I'll also be auctioning some packs starting at $1. Now, today's video is sponsored by Whatnot. Whatnot is a fast-growing live shopping platform where you can watch creators stream and bid on products in real time. It's especially big for Pokemon cards, with sellers worldwide opening packs live and chatting with the community. Honestly, streaming is one of the coolest ways to engage with creators. And honestly, me as a content creator myself, I love having people on stream because it's a real personal way to connect with them. On my last stream, we've actually had some awesome pulls for Pokemon 151 in particular. We've pulled the Squirtle and Charmander illustration rares. We've pulled the Giovanni's Charisma and also the Ivysaur illustration rare. But honestly, for this stream, I'm hoping we pull a big special illustration rare. So definitely feel free to join the hybrid giveaway and selling stream on September 21st, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And the best part is that all new users get a free $15 credit when signing up using my link. Head to the link on screen or scan the QR code appearing right now. A huge shout out to Whatnot for supporting the channel. Now let's get back into this video. Now, moving on to a big interesting one right here is the Dragonite V from Evolving Skies. In July, it was selling for 233 US. Currently selling for $443. Now, yes, it's a big price increase, but honestly, if you ask me, these alternate arts from the Sword and Shield era, they were under the radar, probably with this whole Scarlet and Violet era boom that happened. A lot of people weren't even looking at the alternate arts, and I kind of feel they were a little bit overlooked, considering that they're very hard to pull. We didn't have anywhere near as much product for, Evolving Skies or any of the other sets compared to the Scarlet and Violet era. And of course, the Sword and Shield era cards had a bit easier chances of getting PSA 10 versus, Scarlet and Violet era cards. They definitely have poorer quality control than previous generations. Now, moving on to the Latias from Crown Zenith. Now, this is a really cool card. This card was, under $10 for such a long time. You can see right now a card selling for $12, but if we pull this into the year graph, you can see last year it was selling for $2. So massive price growth on this one in terms of percentage increase. Of course, the dollar value that it's grown isn't that substantial, but of course, like I said, the percentage increase is definitely big. Crown Zenith cards right now are interesting because Crown Zenith, a lot of people are looking at Crown Zenith and saying, wow, what an amazing set did we have? And also, wow, how good were the pull rates for Crown Zenith? Because Crown Zenith is one of those really interesting products, right? If you buy anything from the Sword and Shield era, Evolving Skies, good luck pulling anything, dude. You're just going to hit brick after brick after brick, and then, you might hit one V card, and then if you're very lucky, you'll hit a VMAX alternate art. This is just from my own personal experience. Nearly every ETB I opened of Crown Zenith, I would have hit some really exciting cards. It was just one of those sets. It really felt like a way to celebrate the end of the Sword and Shield era as the finale set, and of course, the pull rates reflected that, and the prices for these singles were so cheap. Now, moving on to the Pikachu from Crown Zenith, the secret rare, also been growing, selling for 14 US, now selling for $36. Like I said, I really do like this Pikachu artwork. To me, it's an interesting artwork, but nonetheless, Pikachu cards are always going to be desired and loved. As we all know, Pikachu is the mascot. When we think of Disney, who's Disney's mascot? It is Mickey Mouse. Pikachu has that same effect. Any Pikachu cards are always going to be desired, no matter how small of a card it is. Just eventually later down the line, you have too many collectors who collect every Pikachu card. You have too many collectors who collect every Charizard card. And when you have Pokemon like Pikachu, like Charizard, even Gengar, you do have those collectors that try to collect every single card of that Pokemon in a master set. A little bit of advice, maybe have a different Pokemon that you love. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier. Hey, Durant, you know what I mean? That's a good Pokemon. If you like Durant, you're in for luck. If you always go for the Pikachus and the Charizards, you're just gonna be left disappointed. Now, moving on to the Victini from Black Bolt, and we can see in the last 3 months, selling for $449, right now selling for $446. This card has held very stable in the market. I have a feeling that for some reason, these monochromatic cards, they haven't really performed that well previously. Like, I've seen so many cards be hyped that are monochromatic, like the Golden Snorlax from Chilling Reign, or even the Golden Pikachu from Surging Sparks. They have early on hype, but as the time goes on, these monochromatic cards don't usually hold in the market when we're looking at previous monochromatic cards. Whether or not that's different because these are so much harder to pull, I'm not sure, but for some reason, the Victini, the monochromatic Zekrom, and Reshiram at this stage, I'm not too sure how well they're going to hold in the market, but for some reason, I don't feel that, that price point is so high for what you get. Now, moving on to the Victini Promo, selling for $7 in August, right now selling for $15, pretty much doubled like what seemed to be overnight, we're going through a big promo hype right now, To be honest, right now, for a promo card, it's definitely a decent price point. $15 isn't that bad, but, knowing how this hobby can go, we saw what happened with the Kingdra, we saw what happened with the Greninja promos from Shroud of Fable, Victini is definitely a loved Pokemon as well. This is definitely a more interesting artwork than the monochromatic card. If this was maybe the special illustration rare in the set, it would also be very beloved as well. So we'll see how it goes. Now, moving on to some more Crown Zenith cards, we have the Galarian Pikachu. 3 months ago selling for, just under $10. Right now selling for $25 US. If I pull this into the year graph, we can see, it had a low point for $3.45 and, right now selling for $25. So, I think a lot of collectors in the hobby are realizing, hey, we should not doubt cards that are under $5. It's getting rarer and rarer to find these real gems in the market that are under $5. That is becoming harder and harder because, the amount of people entering the hobby. But, I'm just going to be seeing where the hobby goes from here because 2025 has definitely been the hardest year for the hobby so far. We're in September right now. It's definitely been a challenging year for the hobby. And moving on to a very interesting card, which is the Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved. 3 months ago selling for $42 US, right now selling for $58. If we go into the year graph, you can see the lowest point in the market this card had was last year for $36 US. So, Tyranitar, very loved card. It's going to be really interesting to see how this card performs. I think Paldea Evolved booster boxes are really climbing right now as well. And, there's a lot of people who like Paldea Evolved, and, it does have one of the best illustration rare libraries from the whole Scarlet and Violet era. Right now, so many different things are happening, but of course, we're going to have to see how things shape out because, I know so many people that have just entered the Pokemon hobby, which is really great to see so many people on board. But as well, you just want to learn about how the hobby works, learn about which cards are cool, and just, see how it plays out. But as much as Pokemon cards are changing in price, I think there's a few collectors wondering about some of the common mistakes that can happen within this hobby, and more important, how to actually avoid them. And I break it all down in this video on screen right here. Within this video currently appearing on screen, I go over the 4 most common Pokemon investing mistakes. Definitely feel free to click on that video to learn more about the hobby. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.